Hi everyone, my name is Matt Williams. I'm a teacher at the University of Oxford where I teach politics. But today I'm going to be talking to you about the eyes. I have a personal interest in the eyes because I was born half blind. But not the sense that one eye doesn't work and the other one does, but both eyes are basically half as good as they should be. The condition I've got is incredibly rare to the extent that, as far as we know, the only other person with the same condition as me lives in Japan. So I tend to be the subject of quite a lot of research. People are quite interested in what's going on with my eyes. There's nothing that can be done about it, so I'm not allowed to drive and I have to take care with my eyes. And so I thought it'd be interesting to sort of share some of my experiences, but also explain how the eye works so that you can look after your own eyes. Because even if your eyes are perfectly good and healthy, they can still suffer from fatigue and strain, especially at this time when we're spending an awful lot of time with screens in front of our faces. That's when you need to look after your eyes in particular. Okay, so I'm going to start with just some questions, okay? Because that's how I teach my students at Oxford University. I ask them to ask me as many questions as possible, because asking questions is actually the best way to learn. You don't learn just by reading loads and loads of facts. The best way to learn is often by asking fantastic questions and then going to research some possible answers to those questions. So think about when you were a bit younger, maybe about 4 or 5 years old, and you were just asking all of those sorts of questions that young children ask because they're so curious about the world. So they ask, why is the sky blue? And why is it not okay to spit indoors? And all sorts of incredibly curious and perceptive questions. That's the way to grow your brain. That's the best way to find out more stuff and to learn. And so that's what I always ask my students to do. Don't just learn facts, ask lots of good questions as if you're a 4-year-old again. Okay, so that's how to think like an Oxford student. So let's start with some questions like that. So first of all, how do your eyes work is a good starting point in terms of a question. Well, your eyes are a little bit like a camera. So either on your phone or in an old style camera, it's got a little hole that allows light in. And as the light streams in, you've got a lens, a little bit like if you've got a magnifying glass or a pair of glasses is another set of lenses. So a clear material that the light goes through, and it focuses the light onto a particular point on what's called your retina. And your retina is what absorbs the light and then sends the information to your brain to be processed as an image. So almost exactly like a camera. It's letting light in and it's processing the light that comes in by focusing it. Now, interestingly, because the lens inside our eyes has to focus the light, so bending the light towards our retinas, it actually turns all of the images of the world upside down. And your brain then has to reflip it up just to make sure that you're not sort of constantly thinking that you're walking on the ceiling. So your brain has to interpret the way the images ought to go, which is kind of mad, but really interesting. Okay. Now, why do we have two eyes, and how can we learn a little bit more about how the eye works? Well, you have two eyes in order to see in 3 dimensions, to get the sense of not only the surface of things, but also how far back they go and how deep they go. And there's a little experiment you can do to try this out. I call it the pirate's patch experiment. Now, pirates, when you often see them in sort of cartoons, they wear an eye patch, right? So what I want you to do is to either cover up or close one of your eyes. Probably easiest, you need both of your hands for this, so it's probably easiest if you just close one of your eyes like this, okay? So the first thing to do is to just sort of shake off your hands like that, okay? And just about 10 centimeters in front of your face, in front of your nose, I want you to try and put your fingers together, okay? And you'll probably find, like me, that it's really difficult. You've got to keep your eyes closed though, okay? It's really difficult because you've got no sense of depth. You're only relying on one eye providing you the information as to where your fingers are. If you've got both eyes, it's much easier to put those fingers together. And that's where we get our depth perception from. And that's why it's 3-dimensional. Now, keeping your eyes closed for a little bit longer, we need to think about, well, why would pirates have ever worn an eye patch? Possibility was that they lost their eyes because of fighting. But another possibility is that they were using it to fight better in the dark. So the next thing I want you to do is very quickly go over to a mirror, or if you've got someone nearby who can check this out for you, go over and open your eyes quickly and see what happens. The eye that you had closed will probably have had its pupil really large. So the pupil is the black bit that you can see in the middle of your eyes, and it will have grown really big because it's trying to adjust to the darkness. And that's your eye opening up the little hole that lets in the light as big as possible to allow more light in. And as you've now let in the light, it's going to shrink down. So you're going to see that one eye has a relatively small pupil, the black part, and the other eye is going to have a big one, and it's going to shrink down so that they're both about the same. Now, the theory was that pirates used to cover one of their eyes so that they could be ready to fight in either the brightness on top of a deck of a ship or in the darkness down below. And so what they would do is they'd take their eye patch, and depending on whether they were on top of the ship where it's really, really bright and they needed their eyes to be adjusted to sunlight, they would keep their one eye covered, and then when they would go down inside the ship where it would be very dark, they would move the eye patch over, and they'd already have an eye that was adjusted to darkness so they could fight better than other people could. It's just a theory, we're not entirely sure if it's true. Anyway, now you've got both your eyes, try the exercise with your fingers again, so just shake them off, about 10 centimetres again, putting your fingers together, and it's much easier now because we can see in depth, not only just the surface. So that's why we have two eyes. Now, why do we have our eyes in front of our face? You'll probably have noticed that some animals don't do that. So fish, for example, have their eyes at the side of their heads, as do horses. The basic distinction is whether or not you're a predator or you're prey. We, human beings, are predatory species. So in other words, we used to hunt. And if you're hunting, you want to make sure that your focus is on your quarry, your prey. So you've got to be looking straight ahead. If you're going to be hunted, you want to make sure you can see basically in 360 degrees. So fish, for example, can see in 360 degrees. They can see behind their heads, and that's why their eyes are stuck on the back of their heads. So that's just an evolutionary sort of trick that some animals have learned to be able to see behind them. But we don't want to just be able to see behind us, we want to be able to see in front. Okay, now, one of the things to note that we've already been discussing is that actually your eye lets in the light, but it's your brain that does the work of telling you what's going on around you. So your brain has to interpret all of the images that you get. So the brain's doing a lot of work. I've already mentioned that the brain has to flip over all of the images that your eye receives because your eye's lens turns them upside down. The other thing that your brain does is it has to stitch together all of your other inputs, all of your other sensory inputs, which is really clever. Now there's a way we can talk through this, which is like this. Now what have I just done there? I've just clapped in front of my face. Okay, pretty simple, so do it yourself. Have a, pretty obvious, just clap your hands, all right? Now what's going on? If you probably know already that the speed of light is the fastest thing in the universe as far as we know, right? So, and it's certainly faster than the speed of sound. So in theory, I should be able to see my hand clap ever so slightly before I hear it, because the noise of the clap is travelling slower than the visual image, the light from the clap. So how is it that it's not sort of creating a slight difference in time? A bit like when you see the lightning before you hear the thunder. Both events happened at the same time, but because the sound and the noise travelling from it are going at different speeds, you see the lightning before you hear the thunder. And it's kind of should be the same with a hand clap. But what happens is that our brain stitches everything together. So it works out how to put the sound and the image together for us. And that means that we're kind of living ever so slightly in the past, because your brain is taking in all of this information and is waiting to work out how to stitch together what you see and what you hear, and is putting it all together in one place, which is kind of crazy how impressive that is. Our brain is like the processor in a computer or a smartphone. It's doing all of this sort of calculations to work out, well, that clap sound needs to go with that clap image, and that's got to be knitted together right at this particular point in time so that it's completely seamless. So next time you do some clapping in front of your face, think about how much work you're putting your brain through in order to do that. And thinking about work, one of the key things that I mentioned we were going to discuss today was eye strain. So what do you do with tired eyes? Because we're all watching a lot on screens at the moment, and that's going to be doing some stuff to our eyes. Well, the trick is that the eyes, like anything else in your body, relies on the muscles. And so when your eyes are tired, it's because the muscles around your eyes are tired. If you think about it, if you're looking at a screen that's about sort of, I don't know, an arm's length in front of your face, your eyes are bending and stretching the muscles inside your head in order to make sure that they are focused on that image just there. Now, if you were to do anything else with a muscle and hold it for that long, it would start getting really tiring, right? Even if if you were just holding something that's quite light. So I've got a sort of mug here. Imagine I was holding a mug just outstretched like that, but I was doing it for 50 minutes. Now, it doesn't, it's easy now because the mug is empty and it doesn't weigh very much. But if I was to do this for nearly an hour, it would start getting really painful, just simply because this is not what my arm naturally does. It doesn't hold itself up like this. So I'm having to use muscles in order to just hold it there. Well, your eyes are doing the same. When you are looking at a screen, you're holding your eyes in a particular position and you're squeezing the muscles around your eyes in order to hold that position for as long as possible. So the first and most obvious thing to do is to just give your eyes a break by looking at something that's a different distance away, and that would be tantamount to putting the mug down and just giving your arms a bit of a rest. Okay, so what you need to do is what's known as the 20-20-20 rule, which is every 20 minutes or so, look at something that's about 20 feet away for 20 seconds. Okay, 20 minutes, 20 feet, 20 seconds. 20 feet, just for sort of reference, is about the distance of a big classroom, or maybe, a sort of two smaller classrooms put together. Basically, you want to be looking out of a window if you've got one, or just looking a relatively long distance, because your eyes have been focused on something quite close for a long time. You need them to then just be allowed to look at something that's a bit further away, and that's just going to allow those muscles to just relax. Okay, now of course if you're in a class that's about 40 minutes long, that can be quite tricky, but if you can, every 20 minutes look at something 20 feet away for 20 seconds, and it will just allow those muscles in your eyes to relax. Another thing you can do is called flexing, and what you do with this is that you just need to keep your head nice and still, and you're just going to exercise the muscles. So keeping your head still, just look up and down and up and down, and do that 10 times, and then do the same but left and right, left and right again for 10 times. And that's just like, going for a workout. It's building up the muscles in your eyes, and that's really good for them. The other thing to think about is just the same thing that you would think about if you had any other form of fatigue. Are you sleeping enough? It's very important for your eyes, just as it is for the rest of your body. Are you eating good food? So food that's nice and green, got lots of vitamins in it, is going to be good for your health generally, and it's certainly going to be good for your eyes. So how's your diet? And are you drinking enough water? So those are the standard things that you would think about for any sort of medical complaint. Obviously, if your eyes are really sore, very, very painful, if they look quite bloodshot, you need to see someone, because that could be a problem. And you want to make sure you deal with it early, because if you leave eye complaints too late, they can become very serious and you can end up losing some of your sight. So you want to make sure that you get in before it gets particularly bad. But the simple exercises, the 20-20-20 rule and the flexing, will just make sure that your eyes don't become unduly strained, and actually you can build up their strength, and you can in fact improve your vision ever so slightly if you do those exercises. Okay, I hope that's been interesting and helpful. I hope you look after yourselves and your loved ones at this difficult time in the pandemic. Once it's all over, we'd love to host you in Oxford for a day so you can come and see what it's like. And we look forward to meeting you all. Thank you so much. Best wishes. Bye now.